All right, take a listen to something that Debbie Harry said about her experiences working as a Playboy bunny before she broke through in the music industry. You may be wondering why I'm choosing this as a topic. There's a good reason for it. So after I play you the clip of Debbie Harry talking about her experiences as a Playboy bunny, I'm going to play you a clip from Eddie and Alex Van Halen talking with David Lee Roth, and believe me, it will all make sense. Alright, so here's Debbie Harry talking about her days as a Playboy bunny.
So now you were a Playboy bunny in a club, it's like
Right.
waitressing. What was that time like for you?
Well, it was basically it was just a job, you know. It was very sort of fancy cocktail waitress job, and but it was an interesting experience. They took very good care of the bunnies, and a lot of the girls there were actually career bunnies.
Now, what's a career bunny? Do you have the tail surgically implanted?
I guess something like that. No, they really they just stuck to it, and they did it for a number of years, and they did really well. They had investment programs and everything.
Alright, the main point from that clip that I want to talk about is where she said, hey, you know, there were career Playboy bunnies, and they had retirement funds and a whole lot of worker perks, and they were well taken care of, and it was just like a really good job at a fancy restaurant being a cocktail waitress. Now, why is this important for a music video, or why would I choose to talk about this? It's because that contract that a Playboy bunny enjoyed back in the day was probably better than the average musician, even at the highest level, was getting at around the same time. And I could illustrate this with many points, and in fact I've put 5 of the worst record contracts in history down in the description box below, so I encourage you to look over those. But right now I want you to listen to something that Eddie and Alex Van Halen said when David Lee Roth interviewed them about their contract with Warner Brothers and how that all worked out. Now, mind you, I could have chosen any number of high-profile musicians, from Jimi Hendrix to Aerosmith to the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, just about any big group you can think of. I could point to tell you a similar story of what you're going to hear from Eddie and Alex right here. So let's listen in.
Yeah, we toured for a year, and they still owed $1 million or something like that.
We
owed $1 million.
We went platinum. We toured for a year. We came back, and Warner Brothers. Can I mention that Warner Brothers told us that we owed them $2 million.
And on top of that, we owed him another record.
Yeah.
And it was the end of the year. We had three weeks to deliver him another record.
So I went to Ted and I said, Ted, let me get something straight here. We sold 1 million records, we toured for a year, and we owe you guys $2 million. So if we had done 10 records and sold 10 million records, we would have owed you $20 million? Right? And he kind of looks at me and goes,
Why are we doing this?
Oh, yeah. 60s level stuff.
So we had 3 weeks to record another record, and boom, we went straight out on tour again.
Now, like I said, I could choose any number of bands and performers to get stories like this, and if I wanted to be ambitious about it, I could take audio clips from a whole bunch of them and put them in a row just to illustrate my point. But I don't need to, because if you're a music fan, you probably already know that musicians are often treated very poorly, and there are only a handful or so that seem to get good contracts and good management and be treated reasonably well, that actually enjoy the kind of wealth that we all believe is part of every musician's career. And in fact, that's not always the case. Musicians are made to struggle, sometimes worse than even what we might think of as the lowliest jobs in the world, like being a waitress, particularly a Playboy bunny where you have to dress up in a silly costume. Why I feel this is important is because times now for musicians are a little bit tougher than they were in the past, so far as being able to gain contracts with record companies, but it's easier for musicians to get their music out. And in some ways, I think it's a blessing that they are no longer at the mercy of the record companies. And I'm not going to go into that in this video because this is about the survivability of musicians and the way that they're treated in society. So what I'd like to hear from you is your thoughts not only on that topic, but what is the worst record deal or music deal you've ever heard of? And if you have a horror story or know about a band that was severely screwed over by their management or somehow had their record company completely betray them or rip them off, go ahead and leave that down in comments. I actually think if you look into the history of virtually every group out there, every band, they have some kind of horror story like this. It's almost part of the process of being initiated into the industry. Meanwhile, I'll leave you with this final thought, which is think that the image of the musician as a pampered superstar that just sits back and collects fat royalty checks and gets adored by millions is a great fantasy to have, and I hope that to some extent it stays in the popular consciousness forever because I think it's a great dream. But I also think it's important to remember the reality behind the dream, which can sometimes be more like what we're discussing in the video here. And put it simply, that is also part of the artist's experience and part of what they create. So I think that when you listen to a band and you know the reality behind the music industry, sometimes it can make the music even better, and sometimes it can make it a bit darker. But in either case, it makes it more honest. This is what I think, but what really matters is what you think. So if you have an idea about this or any other topic connected to classic or contemporary music, please drop it in the section below. And remember to like and subscribe. Thanks a lot.
Artists don't get paid anyway. There's maybe 10 or 12 of them that have semi-decent deals, and the rest of them are, you know.
Like Mariah Carey just had this big $20 million. That's like a huge deal, right?
So you feeling that?
Yeah, I mean, what am I missing?
Okay, let's do some math.
Okay.
If you signed me to a record company,
right,
or a record deal, let's suppose you have a record company,
right,
how much would you give me? The album sells for $18, right? $18?
Whatever, yeah.
All right, how much of that would you give me?
Half?
Half? Half sound good?
Yeah.
All right, check this out. If I sell 1 million copies, I'm going to have $10 million, right? Roughly $10 million.
Right.
If I sell 2 million copies, I got $20 million.
Right.
If I just sell 3 million copies, I got $30 million. Now who has the biggest record deal?
Oh, I see. Yeah, right. Okay.
Right? So Mariah kind of got screwed.
Do you think it's possible to make it? This is for people who may be starting bands and so forth. You've got a lot of people in this audience who may have a band and they want to know if it is possible to make it without a tremendous amount of X number of thousands of dollars of record company support.
No, it's not possible.
Grim, isn't it? I mean, that's a grim
and if you do
answer.
make it, they'll hold on to your money and you will have to sue them to get it.
Music Guru here, asking you to help us on our march to 10,000 subscribers.